Good evening. I'm Cindy Darling, Mayor of the City of Walnut Creek, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Walnut Creek City Council. The City Council is conducting this meeting from the City Council chamber. This meeting is being video streamed and can be viewed live or later on the city's website. As some attendees may be participating in their first Walnut Creek City Council meeting, I wanted to welcome everyone and talk briefly about the public comment process. For each agenda item, there will be an opportunity for public comment on that item. Thus, if you desire to speak to an item on the agenda this evening, please hold your comments until the City Council considers that item. Additionally, we have a section on the agenda titled Public Communications, which is for public comments for items not on the agenda. Any comments during public communication should not relate to an item that is on the agenda this evening. Consistent with Section 9.5 of the City Council Handbook, 30 minutes will be initially allocated for public communication for items not on the agenda. Additional time for public communications for items not on the agenda will be provided at the end of the open session portion of the meeting if necessary. If you desire to provide a public comment, please complete a speaker identification card and line up behind the lectern at the appropriate time. Wait your turn, and then when you approach the lectern, please state your name, city of residence for the record. You will have 2 minutes to address the City Council. Please keep in mind that this is a city business meeting. The City Council has adopted rules of decorum to ensure that meetings are conducted efficiently and effectively, and that all members of the public have a full, fair, and equal opportunity to be heard. The City Council Handbook outlines decorum expected in the council chamber and can be found on our website. All remarks should be addressed to the City Council. Please do not use threatening, profane, or abusive language which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the council meeting. Again, each speaker will have 2 minutes to make your remarks. Written comments submitted and received up to 2 hours before the meeting have been posted to the city website for public review and are included in the meeting record, but will not be separately read into the record. Performance. Good evening. I am Cindy Darling, Mayor of the City of Walnut Creek, and welcome to the Tuesday, November 4th regular meeting of the Walnut Creek City Council. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk Susie Martinez, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Devaney.
Here.
Councilmember Francois.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilk.
Here.
And Mayor Darling.
Here. All right, and tonight, the first order of business is it is Lung Cancer Awareness Month, and we are issuing a proclamation recognizing the significant health impacts of lung cancer in our society, and the fact that it affects us all. It affects I had a friend of mine, her mother passed away without ever having smoked. We always think of it as being something that's that. So it's an important health problem here, and we wanted to raise awareness of it. And I would like to invite Lena Lee with the American Lung Association up to accept this proclamation for Lung Cancer Awareness Month. And you can go ahead and introduce yourself, and then I will come around and present the proclamation, and then we do the picture. So.
Great. Hi, my name's Leanna Lee, and I'm a member of the American Lung Cancer Screening Initiative.
Hi, my name is Hannah Popoy, and I'm also a member of the American Lung Cancer Screening Initiative at Berkeley. So American Lung Cancer Screening Initiative is a national nonprofit that's composed of students and physicians that are working together in order to raise awareness about lung cancer and lung cancer screening. On behalf of the team, we would like to thank the Walnut Creek Council for recognizing Lung Cancer Awareness Month this November 2025. It's truly an honor to be here today. Lung cancer is now the leading cause of cancer-related deaths worldwide. It is the second most common cancer in the U.S., with an estimate of over 230,000 diagnoses and over 127,000 deaths this year alone. Anyone can get lung cancer. It claims more lives than breast, prostate, and colon cancers combined. Lung cancer has become the deadliest cancer in the U.S. However, it doesn't have to be. Early detection through lung cancer screening can catch lung cancer early when it's easier to treat and the survival rates are higher. Unfortunately, the national screening rate is as low as 18%, and only 16% of high-risk Californians are being screened. We strongly encourage all individuals aged 50 to 80 with a smoking history to ask their doctors about lung cancer screening. It's also important to spread the word to anyone who you may know who may benefit from the screening. By advocating together, we can help bring awareness to lung cancer and remove the stigma surrounding it. By disseminating together, we can increase screening rates and decrease lung cancer mortality. Together, we can help save lives. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Come around. Who's going to do the picture? I'm going to do it.
Okay.
This is great.
No, we're going to do the selfie.
Selfie, that's great.
I could do this, and then we're going to make Matt come out and do the real picture. This is a test of my organizational skills here. Thank you. You guys want to come on out and join us? Thank you guys for coming in.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Come on over. Are you guys all students? Yes. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming. Good luck with yours. Thanks for coming. Education.
Thanks for all the work you're doing. Keep up the good work, go Bears.
And next on the agenda is I would like to invite Deputy Fire Marshal McAllister from the Contra Costa County Fire Department or Fire Protection District up to make a presentation to the council.
Hi, good evening. Aaron McAllister with Contra Costa County Fire. We are your fire department in Walnut Creek. And thank you for allowing the district a few moments on your agenda just to give you the latest and greatest and what's happening at Con Fire. One of our big milestones this past year was the annexation of Rodeo Hercules Fire District. Why is that important to Walnut Creek? Because it put together an organization that had been an outstanding issue for a long, long time on the west side, and our resources flow seamlessly throughout the day wherever they're needed. If we have multiple fragmented fire departments, then there's permissions and delays, and coming into a larger organization, it really smoothed things out, and we're able to serve that community better and serve our other communities better. We added all of their employees or paramedics, and they're kind of scattered throughout the county, so some of them are actually working in Walnut Creek now, getting used to the county and seeing new areas they're not used to working in. So that brings us to 35 staffed fire stations and 41 fire companies. So here in Walnut Creek, we have 1 engine and 1 ladder truck, so there's 7 people, 4 on the ladder truck, 3 on the engine that work at Station 1, downtown Walnut Creek. And of course, we have Station 7, Station 4, and then the adjacent stations as well that serve Walnut Creek. So that takes us to over 670 total staff. We do have a reserve station in Briones Valley, and the Byron Boys Ranch that is in Byron is now the Byron Wildland Fire Center. That's where our hand crew is located. 4th of July this year saw a little bit of decrease in our calls for service. Maybe it was the weather, maybe it was multiple factors, but we did statewide have some very high-profile impacts, such as the Esparto incident. Our Fire Marshal, Chris Bachman, is serving on a statewide panel that's going to review fireworks-related regulations, and hopefully that brings some positive change as to the fireworks industry and how it's regulated in California to help make things safer. You can see from the numbers, Walnut Creek had very, very few calls for service. In fact, I don't think we had a fire in Walnut Creek on July 4th this year. New this year was a full-fledged aerial firefighting program locally. Copter One, we hired a helicopter company. We spent about $1.8 million on that contract. In addition to that, we put a staff member on that helicopter every day, so the pilots talking to pilots and the fire officers talking to fire officers on the ground. So one of our employees in the front seat, about a 300-gallon capacity in that tank. On the helicopter, it's a belly tank, which is distinguished from other aerial firefighting where there's a bucket, which poses an issue flying over occupied homes and the swing. So we went with the belly tank, which it's able to fly loaded and then respond immediately to the fire. And they saw a busy season. They had 40 fires. They had 232 drops. Almost 70,000 gallons of water was delivered by that helicopter. I do want to point out we had a partner. PG&E paid about $1 million of the cost of this helicopter. We wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But just to give you some glimpse into the future, the need for that is not going away. We were able to get multiple drops in before the CAL FIRE aircraft arrived. So the CAL FIRE state aircraft comes from the north and comes from the south, and we're kind of in Contra Costa where the Olympic rings meet. So we have some longer ETAs for their aircraft, and so it came in really, really valuable for us. We are looking at what the next version of this program looks like. Do we continue to contract at full build out? Do we have our own aviation program? So we're taking all that into account now. The helo pods, the Board of Supervisors dedicated money for 5 of those, and that's what you see underneath that helicopter. We've got 2 of them deployed, and we're looking for homes for the other 3. They need to be near a water source, but we're trying to shorten the reflex time where the helicopter picks up water to the scene of the fire. A couple significant fires in Walnut Creek. In the first half of the year, we did have 37 exterior fires. We've had a couple of working structure fires, a residential fire and a commercial fire through the first half of the year. A number of working fires as well. And compared to last year, we're probably on track to hit about the same number. Okay, the heat map. It's consistent with what you might expect to find. Downtown Walnut Creek has a density in downtown where we have high number of calls for service. The other thing that really stands out on this map is Rossmore. It's very apparent where Rossmore is. It's that valley, and you got some red on the map there. We have a high frequency of emergency medical calls in Rossmore. But overall, throughout the year, fairly steady in the calls for service in Walnut Creek, running about 1,000 calls a month. As you might expect, they're mostly EMS calls. A couple of those other categories, and I'm sorry that slide didn't quite translate. It's a little jumbled. But we do have some ambulance-only calls, and I do want to bring your attention to that. A lot of people ask, Chief, why do you send a fire engine to everything? The answer is we don't. We EMD our calls through our dispatch center. We triage those calls, and some calls get in ambulance only. So we don't always send a fire engine to everything. A lot of those are triaged to ambulance only, and in Walnut Creek, the first part of this year, we had 1,500 of those calls that got only an ambulance. I also want to highlight that we're in the middle of a remodel at our communications center, about an $18 million investment in our comm center. It's been quite some time since that building has had a refresh, and we're actually moving it from its current location into what was formerly our headquarters on Geary. And in addition to rebuilding the comm center, we're spending about $5 million in technology upgrades. Really the brain of the fire district, the backbone. We can't do it without our comm center and all the technology that supports what we do every day. Feels a little bit odd to be talking about wildfire preparedness with the storm coming in, but it is a year-round event in California. We are going to see significant winds, and we're in that tween period right now where we do have still a lot of dry grass out there where the green's starting to show through, so that potential still exists. On our website and through this QR code is a preparedness guide. with some recommendations for homeowners. And I want to go off script just a little bit. I got two other items I'd like to cover with you. First, in the last couple weeks, we had an EV fire in Walnut Creek. It was a Jeep, an EV Jeep plugged in, charging in a below-grade parking structure with chargers below grade. This is kind of worst-case scenario for us. EV fires produce hydrogen fluoride. It's a highly, highly toxic gas, and that's in a confined space when it's below grade. If that's on the roadway, we can keep a safe distance and try to control smoke. The good news is all the building systems worked as intended. The smoke management system, the sprinkler system. But at the end of the day, we had a number of employees and protective equipment exposed to this toxic gas. Their gear is going to have to go back east and be cleaned by a specialized cleaner at great expense. And if that gear is not able to be cleaned, it could cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace that equipment. So I was just at the California Fire Chiefs Association annual meeting last week, and we brought this up with some of our peer agencies, the 15 largest departments in California, and nobody had had one of these yet in a below grade, this kind of worst case scenario. So we are talking to peer agencies, considering what we should do in the future, how to address this new hazard that presents itself to firefighters and the public. The other item I want to add in is the fire district is happy to report that we purchased 1300 Civic Drive. It's right next to Station 1. It's formerly the Meals on Wheels building. We believe that in 10 years or so, we're going to rebuild Station 1. There's a lot of construction and development happening in Walnut Creek, and this helps the fire district secure that site and the corner for a future rebuild of Station 1. In the meantime, we'll probably do some paint, carpet, HVAC work, and occupy that in some form until we get to a master plan to rebuild Station 1 in the future. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I know I had one question. We hear a lot now about the changes in defensible space recommendations and the idea of the Zone 0 around the house. Are we going to see that getting implemented in Contra Costa County in the near future?
The Board of Forestry is taking up the Zone 0 regulations, and we expect that to be adopted by the Board of Forestry by the end of the year. You may recall there's a delineation between state responsibility and local responsibility area. We think that will be pushed into the high and the very high of local responsibility areas. So yes, we do anticipate that happening.
Do you anticipate it being something for new structures or existing structures?
It's going to be both. It's going to be a lot easier to implement on new structures. And I think the first year or two, we intend education, as does the state, in the existing structures. Heavy education. We don't want to be heavy-handed early
Let me give you my husband's name and phone number. Other questions for the Cindy Sola?
Thank you for being here tonight. So I sit on the Governor's California Seismic Safety Commission, and we're currently conducting a study through Cal OES, which we're a part of, on the capability and seismic readiness of the 3,200 fire stations around the state. One of the issues that came up in the Rio Del earthquake 3 years ago was that the roll-up doors on the fire station, when the shaking was done, were stuck. They were jammed, and they couldn't get the doors up for 20 minutes, which could be catastrophic, both for medical as well as for fire issues. How do our stations in the Contra Costa Fire District fare? And Vince Wells is on the commission with me. You might know Vince.
Yeah, yes, of course. So our stations vary. I mean, we have a number of stations that were constructed in the last 5 years. They're, of course, built to the highest, newest standards. We also operate older stations, such as Station 1, that was built in the 60s, that do not meet those current standards. New fire stations for a single company, just for one crew, is about $12 million. And for a double company, for 2 crews and enough bedrooms for 7 or 8 people, is running $23 million. It's a very expensive proposition to replace stations. We do intend to embark on a master plan. I mean, I could rattle off stations that need replacement, but we are going to go towards a master plan and identify those older stations that would be the higher priority. Lastly, I'll add that we do have policy. Anytime there's anything 3.0 or greater, we do roll up, all the doors get taken up, apparatus comes out of the base.
As fast as possible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember DeFinney?
Yeah, hi, Chief McAllister. Thanks for coming down to talk to us. I was wondering, we're seeing a lot of technology promote their activities. The police were there, the fire department was there, live music, food trucks, so it was a very good time.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Sure. Yeah, the Made in the Shade event is really amazing, considering that Shadelands was this, so it was a business park, but there really wasn't a lot of resident activity there for many, many years, and it's just really changed in the last few years. Big kudos to the Chamber of Commerce and really the whole Shadelands group and the PBID in putting all that together. It is a terrific experience and fun for the whole family, as they say. I also had a walkthrough of the Chick-fil-A that's going up in the Northgate area. So along with Councilmember Silva and some staff, just wanted to see what was happening there, making sure that some of the things that were brought up that we had provided direction on Chick-fil-A were being handled, including expanded sidewalks and some of the traffic potential issues that were being mitigated. And obviously, we're going to revisit that about 6 months after they open. They're expected to finish construction by about the second, third week of December and expected to open by the second week of January. So I'm sure we'll be hearing about the grand opening at that time. I did want to make a plug for our own city, which had a terrific Halloween event for the city employees last week. Councilmember Silva and I were judges for the costume contests and the carving of jack-o'-lanterns, and it just shows that Walnut Creek, while we take ourselves seriously when it comes to the work that we all do and provide for our residents, we also have fun within the city itself and providing a great work-life balance and fun experience for our own employees, and I just take real pride in that. And thank you to our city manager and the Fun Bunch for putting all that together. And lastly, I had the opportunity to visit the chamber event, the Business Expo, which was at the Marriott. Again, I saw Councilmember Silva. I think you were shadowing me for a lot of the last 2 weeks. Or maybe I was shadowing you. Okay, all right, well, we'll put it that way. Whatever you say on that. But anybody else that might have gone to that, great event by the Chamber, bringing together, I think it was over 50 different businesses from Walnut Creek, as well as I think there were a few from Lafayette, and just really showing what there is in terms of commerce in Walnut Creek. Again, it felt to me like, you know what, we are back. Walnut Creek is back. We've been saying that for several years now, but it's just great to see this level of activity. And I believe we are now down to the lowest vacancy rate in downtown that we've been at since prior to COVID, which is at about 7%, I want to say. It was something like that. But, I mean, just to give an example of the relative vacancy rates in the state, a lot of us were at the Cal Cities event where we meet mayors and city managers and council members from all over the state. They're at 10 to 15% vacancy rate still downtown in many, many cases. They look at Walnut Creek and they say, it's amazing what you've done here. How can we get there? And these are people that bring that conversation to me. It's not like I talk about it. They say, Walnut Creek, oh my gosh, you guys are doing great. So again, just real pat on the back there to the city staff and the Chamber of Commerce and our business community that really makes sure that Walnut Creek is a terrific place to work, shop, dine, live, and just enjoyment for everyone. So that's my update.
Thanks. I'll just jump in now since we're going this way. I got to do the opening night kickoff for the Citizens Institute. For those of you who don't know what that is, we invite people to apply, and it's a 6-week program where they learn all about the city. They get to go out and kick the tires on the big trucks. They get to go down and get locked in the jail. And we explain to them what a city does. And it's always a great opportunity to learn. If any of you are interested in what's going on, we offer it once or twice a year. I got to go to the ribbon cutting for WC Kitchen and Bar, which took over the former OPA space. And it's a local couple who really just are passionate about their food. They've really done a nice remodel on the inside, so it was great to welcome them to our community. Marin Clean Energy, I sit on the boards, MCE now. We had our executive committee meeting the other day, and we are working through some issues that some of the folks up in Marin County have brought up. As I reported out last time, the cost of power has been fluctuating wildly. And so while MCE did not, manage to increase their net position, their income from electricity sales was not equal to the amount that they paid for electricity. And so we're looking at ways of balancing that out. And the executive committee is working on that. And lastly, for those of you who have been following the news with SNAP and food security, what SNAP is called CalFresh here in California, it is not clear right now what the federal government is doing, but the benefits that are normally distributed as of the first of the month were not distributed. Staff has worked to get out information on social media about the various programs that are available if somebody is experiencing food insecurity. The local food banks are stepping up. And if you are in a position where you can help, both White Pony Express and the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano are doing a food drive specifically to help overcome the gap that is currently existing. And we'll be out at the Farmers Market this Sunday, and the Walnut Creek Farmers Market is working with White Pony Express. The White Pony Express already comes and picks up all the extra fruits and vegetables, all the perishables from the farmers market. But if you're coming to the farmers market on Sunday, you can bring your non-perishable items, not in glass, and there'll be a barrel there at the farmers market to help provide some resources for those people who might need it. Councilmember Francois.
Okay, thanks, Mayor, and thank you for that update on the food drive at the farmers market. I too was able to attend the Citizens Institute at the Lesher Center last week. Carolyn was gracious enough to host me, and it was great to see the civic engagement and the ability really to showcase one of the crowning jewels in Walnut Creek's crown, I guess, in terms of the Lesher Center, plus our open space, just the ability kind of to connect with fellow residents. And it was great to see a good group of people there, civic-minded, engaged people. I told them that I was a graduate of Citizens Institute back in 2007, so be careful. You never know where this might lead you. And it was a good group, and I think they learned more about the Lesher Center. And I saw we had an email in our correspondence from one of the Citizens Institute members who's already getting civically engaged. So that's great to see. Other than that, I had a pretty light couple of weeks. I did staff the farmers market booth. For those of you who don't know, each of us will take turns. You'll find a council member there at the farmers market on Locust Street from about 10 to noon. We all kind of call in the morning, sometimes on Sundays.
2 hours.
Most Sundays, not a holiday Sunday. And then it's an opportunity to come up, talk to us about something that's happening in your neighborhood, a pothole that needs to be fixed, an issue you're having with a broken street light, just to say we're doing a great job. We always like getting those. But if there's a question or a concern or an issue, it's an opportunity. And I want to give a shout out to Brianna Byrne. I had a woman come up to me and ask about safety improvements at Ignacio and Walnut, and pedestrian improvements and traffic safety improvements on Sunday. I emailed Brianna on Sunday, and by Monday morning she had already contacted with the resident and let her know that actually we have a plan to make improvements at that intersection. It's funded, it's underway, and here's the time frame when it will happen, and if you have any follow-up questions to contact. So that's the kind of customer service you get when you're at Walnut Creek, and if you come to the farmers market, we're happy to connect you with the right folks and staff who will let you know what's going on in the city. And then just finally, a reminder that today, of course, is Election Day, and there's about an hour and 10 minutes left before polls close. So get down and vote if you haven't already, or turn in your ballot here at City Hall. We have 2 ballot drops, one on the parking lot side and one on the Main Street side. And that's my update.
Thank you. Councilmember Silva.
I'll just add to the election reminder, but those 2 drop boxes get locked at 8 p.m., so they will be picked up promptly. So don't delay. And every vote counts. So the mayor and I attended the Metropolitan Transportation Commission retreat that was held 2 weeks ago. It was after our last council meeting. And with us was Erica Vandenbrand, our Director of Community and Community Development, and Henry Root, is that it? Member of the Planning Department. We pleaded our case in a minute. We each got a minute. 19
That's
minutes
120 words, in case you're wondering.
at rapid fire speed. They heard a lot of comment about concerns about the policy. I'm cautiously I know they heard our comments. It's not that we are not supportive of transit-oriented development. In fact, we've been doing it for 40 years. It's just that there are some areas that they've included in the proximity to transit are unbuildable or unrealistically expectations with them. So we have to keep fighting the good fight. I'm glad you went first. So more to follow on that. Last week, I attended the October meeting of I used to say the Golden Rain Foundation at Rossmore, but it's now Rossmore Walnut Creek Board. They have changed their brand. They are Rossmore Walnut Creek. And reported on things that we're doing in the city, listened to some of their reports. They were very interested in hearing what happened with the e-bike discussion, and so I brought them up to speed on that, and more to follow on that. Last night's Walnut Creek Sister City Board meeting, they had a debrief on the trips to Italy and Sheafolk and the night here in the council chambers, and they were very excited about how it went here at the council chamber. Their plans are underway for the Sheafolk students and the Nocheto students to visit Walnut Creek in the last week of March and the early part of April, and so their plans are underway on that, and also plans are underway for recruiting students who are 8th graders to participate in the program for 2026, 2027, and more information will follow on that. The Northern California Organization of Sister Cities International will have a meeting in Orinda this Saturday, and I will be attending that along with the president of Sister Cities. And finally, I will mention that Councilmember Francois and I are the representatives from Walnut Creek to the board of the Recycle Smart, which is the Central Contra Costa Solid Waste Authority. It's a joint powers authority partnership with Danville, La Miranda, the county, and Walnut Creek to provide the trash services, the organics recycling services, and the regular recycling services. And unfortunately, you missed a great and interesting meeting this last week, because we received a report on our waste characterization study, the results of that study. So envision, how many of you have always wanted to do dumpster diving? There are people in this world, at least I got a laugh out of that. There are consultants that actually collect samples from all of the bins, not all of the bins, but a representative sampling of the trash, the blue bins and the green bins, to determine, when you basically take it apart and see what's going on, are we putting the right stuff in the right bin? It's part of our efforts to encourage people to recycle more, but recycle the right things in the right bins and not put the wrong things in the wrong bins. So the results are in, and it gives us the reason to do a study like this is to actually be able to determine what you should be putting on the sides of the garbage trucks, the promotional and educational material. Like, do you remember the billboard on the side of the trucks with the dog licking the peanut butter container? You're not supposed to put the containers in the recycling until it's been reasonably cleaned out. A wet paper towel, something like that, or a dog. Dogs are very good at that. So what we have learned from this study is that, first of all, there are 62 types of things that are put in these 3 bins in 6 categories, with paper, plastics, metal, glass, organics, and other being everything that shouldn't be in there. So some learnings from this study. There are still, while our single family homes are doing well. There are still excessive amounts of organics in the landfill stream in all three sectors, those customer sectors being single-family homes, multifamily homes, and commercial. So too much green is in the black or the blue. The single-family sector is highly successful at diverting yard trimmings into the organics cart, but has not yet fully embraced putting organics waste from your food scraps in the green bin. So if you're not putting your food scraps into the green bin, you should start. There is an ongoing need to promote opportunities for hazardous waste and household hazardous waste disposal opportunities. A hazardous waste is things like needles, prescription drugs, medications, etc. There's ways to dispose of all that, and the information about what to do properly is on the Recycle Smart website. And here is the takeaway from what they've found, is that right now our single-family homes are doing 64% diversion. That means that only 36% of the trash, is, and that's better than the state law, which is 50% diversion. But what they found in the wrong bins equated to, if we put it in the right bins, we'd be diverting 88% of our trash. We can do better. Remember to read the sides of the bins. And there's even an online, I'm going to bring the online quiz of can you put it in the right bin in to do it during one of these. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay, now that we're all clear on what's going where, next on the agenda is a public hearing for consideration to waive the first reading and introduce an ordinance amending various sections of Title 10, Chapter 2, the zoning of the Walnut Creek Municipal Code to implement the FY 23-31 Housing Element Program, residential care facilities, minor code cleanup, edits, and find that amendments are exempt under CEQA. And I invite staff forward to make a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and the City Council. My name is Frank Kang. I'm the building official for the city. It is my honor tonight to present you with ordinance for the adoption of the 2025 Building Code. Here is an overview of my presentation. I will begin with some background information about the California Building Standard Code, and then discuss the proposed adoption and the city amendment, and then conclude with recommendations for Council's consideration. So California Building Standard Codes govern the design and the construction of new buildings and alterations of the existing buildings. So here are the 13 parts of the California Standards Code. The California WUI Code is highlighted in red, means it is brand new code for this year. So I will talk a little bit more update in a minute. So the California Building Standard Commission updates the standards codes every 3 years in alignment with the revisions of the model code. Local jurisdictions are permitted to adopt more restrictive amendments if those amendments can be justified by local climatic, geological, and topographical conditions. However, now we have AB 130 passed on June 30th of this year, which is essentially created a 6-year memorandum for the local amendment impacting the residential construction. Except, with those amendments meet the following 2 exceptions. Exception 1, if the amendments are substantially the same as those previously filed in the city and currently in effect. Second option, it is regarding the home hardening. If those amendments for home hardening are proposed by the fire district, it is acceptable. So this is some information here about the new WUI code. Current building code, Chapter 7A, only mandated new building in a very high fire hazard severity zone. And in Walnut Creek, we don't have any of them. However, the new WE code in the 25 will mandate the building in high fire, in a higher, not only the very high, also in a high fire hazard zone. And we have quite a bit. Here is a map. So the orange color, it is the high fire hazard zone here. You can see some area in Rossmore surrounded, some area in towards the end of the Rogier, and all the way along to the southeast of the Boundary Oak area. So they are in orange color. The property in those areas will be impacted and qualified for the California WE code to be enforced. And what is the impact? So the code requires the exterior wall of the house to be either non-combustible or 1 hour fire rated. Roof need to be either Class A roof or it is non-combustible like metal, stone, or those kind of a roofing material. Here it is regarding glazing, right? If you have for windows, you have to be 20 minutes fire rated because the envelope of the wall already 1 hour. So the window need to be 20 minutes. The door need to be either 20 minutes fire rated, or it is, if the wood door, it had to be solid wood core door with a 1 3/8 inch of thick, just like right now the garage door we are using right now. So the code also has some requirement for the accessory structures. If the accessory structure is like less than 3 feet from the main house, then the accessory building need to comply with the same requirement as for the house, regardless of how big or small it is there. Now, if the accessory building is further away from the house, more than 3 feet, but less than 50 feet, and the accessory building is more than 120 square feet, then again, the accessory structure need to comply with the same requirement for the new building. So the staff proposed to adopt the following 11 parts of the building code. Amendment. So staff proposed 3 structural amendments and 6 flood plan amendments. All these totally 9 amendments are substantially the same as we currently have enforced. So we are in compliance with AB 130. 3 structural amendments will restrict a certain type of shear wall materials in commercial and residential constructions, and also require special inspection for the concrete spread footings to improve the quality control and the quality of the construction. Again, the intent it is to minimize the damage caused by the earthquake, and this 2-3 structure comments are carried over from the previous code cycle. 6 flood plan amendment here, including the requirement of a higher standard freeboard to elevate the building to minimize the water damage. And we increase the area. Instead of a 1-year construction valuation, we increase 3 years accumulated improvement period to determine if the existing building qualify, as a substantial improvement or repair. If that existing building qualified it, then they have to elevate the entire, floor and other measures as a new building proposed in that flood zone area. Justification is these amendments are supported by local climatic and topographic conditions. They are carried over from previous code cycles, identical the same. We have 1 administrative change. Staff proposed to repeal entirely Chapter 11 in Title 9 of the Municipal Code, time of sale, residential weatherization disclosure. This ordinance was adopted in 1983, require a homeowner to disclose the status of weatherization measures when at the time of the sales. So now, right now we are 42 years later, right? So the current modern real estate practices, particularly the routine use of home inspection, have made this voluntary disclosure ordinance unnecessary. Now I'm going to switch gear to two fire ordinance, 2514 and then 2515. So on October 7th, Fire District introduced these two ordinances to adopt the California Fire Code and the California WE Code. The state, our county fire have some fundings to just the amendment are necessary. They set up the public hearing date on November 18th, which is the same day as we're having the public hearing. The fire code amendment are carried over from previous code cycle. And per the state law, as a member of the city, we have to ratify the fire amendment, fire ordinance in order to enforce it. Now I want to talk about the 2514 ordinance regarding the WE code. Fire District proposed two amendments. One is regarding the existing homes. So if the existing homes under substantial addition or alteration, then the existing home need to comply the same requirement for new homes. You may ask, what does that mean? So what's the definition of a substantial addition? The definition is, if somebody proposes addition, which is more than 50% of the existing square footage of the house, and the accumulated area, including existing and the new, is more than 6,000 square feet. That's a very big house. Then the whole entire house need to comply with the requirement I just went over, right? The exterior wall, the roofing materials, and the glazings, the door requirement. Second amendment, it is for larger development, more than 30 dwelling units. And when the perimeter fences, when it's within 30 feet of a structure or house, then the fence need to be built of non-combustible materials, cannot be wood anymore. Here's a picture to show what's that mean. So this is a show the fire started as a grass fire, and then the fire jumped on the perimeter fence of this neighborhood, and then the fire started traveling along the interior fence, separate each unit, buildings. And then the fire jumped on the shed, okay, in the back of the wall, the house or next to it, and eventually the fire jumped on the house and burned the entire neighborhood down. So this is just why it is important way, for the perimeter fence, if they are less than 30 feet from the main house, then they have to be built with non-combustible materials. Again, for larger residential development, 30 or more units over here. So the staff recommendation is recommending council to introduce and waive further reading of this ordinance to adopt 2025 California Building Standard Codes with amendment and set a public hearing date on November 18th. So this will conclude my presentation. I will be happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much. Questions? Councilmember DeFinney?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to pass along a compliment. I had the opportunity to spend a week with our fire marshal last week, and he spoke very highly of you and the work that you do here in Walnut Creek. So thank you for your work here, and we're lucky to have you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Appreciate it.
Questions? Councilmember Francois?
Thanks, Frank.
Yep.
Good report. So is it correct that the 2025 Building Standards Code, will that be the code essentially that remains locked in place for 6 years?
For 3 years.
For 3
And then I need to come back again, to do the adoption for the 2028 code.
Okay.
Again, we need but the AB 130 locked 6 years, right? So when I come back to adopt 2028 code, I still need to follow the same requirement by law. I cannot propose any more, restrictive amendment than the code unless for those already carried forward from 25 code cycle. Good question.
That's correct, and there are very limited additional exceptions that some cities have implemented in this round of code updates, but 3 years from now, most of those will have passed as well too. So it's really what you have in your codes right now that you can carry forward.
The building standard codes will continue to be updated on the 3-year cycle, but in a very narrow window of changes. Is that?
Correct, yeah. They will continue to be updated. The law prohibits local agencies from amending them. It doesn't prohibit the state building standards code from making the changes.
I see. Okay.
Right, because the model code updated every 3 years.
Got it.
So we have to follow it in alignment with the revision in the state level.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
So
Councilmember
another way
Silva?
to say it is our hands are tied in 3 years
Very
from
tied.
doing anything at the local level that is over and above what they're doing at the state.
Correct.
The, that picture of the burning fences, that applies the additional structural requirements that the fire code has or apply to developments of 30 houses or more, which we
Yes.
have.
We don't have
we
don't
have
have that
more-
much land in Walnut
We don't
Creek
have that
for
much,
the.
right, unless we start taking over the open space, which we're not going to do. Okay, so it really isn't related to multifamily high-rises or low-rises. It's related to single-family homes of developments of 30 homes or greater.
30 units or more. They didn't clearly say is that if this requirement apply to a condo or something, just a residential. It might apply to a building with, one building with more than 30 units. I need more clarification for that. But right now, the language said is more than 30 residential
Okay.
units. That's the language they propose.
All right,
Okay, yeah.
I think that's all I wanted clarification on. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
as somebody in the very high zone. So it sounds like the requirements do not kick in unless you're doing a really major remodel, just a kitchen
Yes.
remodel or
Yeah,
something
no,
like that
no,
won't call it.
The remodeling, substantial remodeling, thank you, Darling, for Cindy, for this question. Basically said, substantial remodeling definition is, alteration definition is, if you altered the both interior wall and exterior wall more than 50% of it, the length, plus you remove more than 50% of the roof. So that's very substantial alteration.
But a simple re-roof wouldn't.
No, will not trigger.
Wouldn't count. I mean,
Will not
you would
trigger.
obviously not be replacing it
Yeah.
with a wooden shake roof, but it
Yeah.
doesn't bring in all those other
The
things.
justification from fire marshal, fire district is, if you already modify more than 50% of the wall, right? And also you modify 50% or more of the roof.
Then
Now, why not you just
just do it.
renovate the entire house per the current code to make it a home hardening for the
Okay.
entire house? That's their justification. I think
Okay.
it makes sense.
That does make sense. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions? All right, we'll go ahead and open this up to public hearing. It's open for public comments. If somebody has comments on the building code and all those fun things, step forward, and I do not see anybody. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back over to the council for discussion, deliberation, and a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'd move to waive the reading and introduce the attached ordinance amending Title IX of the Walnut Creek Municipal Code to adopt the 2025 edition of the California Building Standards Code by reference and with local amendments, and to set a public hearing for November 18th, 2025.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Francois.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVinny.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Will.
Aye.
Mayor Darling.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. It's a complicated subject. I appreciate you walking us through that. Next on the agenda is the public hearing on consideration to waive the first reading and introduce an ordinance prohibiting the use of gasoline-powered leaf blowers. Oh, did I miss one? Oh, shoot. Darn it. I thought we were doing good. Okay, next.
Hello, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I'm Erica Van Brand, the Community Development Director. I will do my darndest to get us through this so you can get to that item, but.
Okay, sign ordinance.
Sign ordinance. So today, just to go through this very briefly, we have a project overview for the sign ordinance update and the timeline. Share results with you of the outreach, stakeholder outreach that we did, as well as we have a sign, working group composed of our members from our planning commission, and then design review commission, and then next steps. So with that, the purpose of this is to eventually create contemporary standards that provide flexibility to address our community's evolving needs. The last time the city went through a comprehensive update of the sign ordinance was back in 1995. I remember it well because I have a daughter that age. But what we would like to do is to clarify the intent of the signage in the community and the city's roles, and we're looking tonight for you to give some feedback around that. Ultimately, then to update the city's sign regulations, and then along with that, our sign design standards and guidelines. So just, a quick time arc over here. We started this project before COVID in 2019, and there had been some initial, outreach to the community, and then COVID came, and so the project was paused. We restarted it again last year, and in earnest this year, where we had a joint meeting of our planning commission and then our design review commission to get feedback about the project, and also to select 2 individuals, one from each commission, to help serve as a working group to help us, serve as a touchstone for the project. Subsequently, we did quite a bit of community outreach, reaching out to a variety of folks, which I'll share a little bit later. And then this fall, coming back to you, because you had asked to come back to you before we started drafting any kinds of ordinances or anything for your consideration. And then ultimately, in early 2026, we hope to be able to bring forward to you a new revised, updated sign ordinance for your consideration. So for those of you who haven't memorized the sign code, this is just some excerpts from our municipal code. And so back in 1995, the intentions by council were these: to provide minimum standards for the signage for all the reasons that are listed there, to promote traffic safety by controlling the design, quality materials, et cetera, but also to encourage creative and innovative approaches to signage, not signing. That would be really clever. And then signs that are a quality design, that are pleasing in appearance, the aesthetics, and appropriate in size, materials, type of activity in the neighborhood they're located in. Fortunately, signage is not regulated the way that housing is. Continuing that is that also to encourage signs that are compatible with the building that is attached to, because these are intended to be attached to buildings for the most part, and are compatible with neighboring buildings and businesses. To also support neighborhood values, property values in the visual environment by discouraging signs that contribute to visual clutter in the streetscape. And then additionally, to identify businesses in an attractive and functional manner, not served primarily as general advertising for the business. And keep that one in mind, because that's one area of discussion I'm sure that you'll want to have some talk and debate over. And then lastly, to discourage signs that cause a traffic hazard or interfere with ingress or egress. So trying to make sure that things don't block people getting to and fro. So with that, We conducted quite a bit of outreach. We had an online questionnaire. It focused primarily on businesses, property owners, and but we also received feedback from the public. And this questionnaire really was focusing on what is the intention that people want to use signage for. And I'll get into those details in just a sec. We also met with the Walnut Creek Chamber of Commerce and the Walnut Creek Downtown Association to request feedback. And also they helped us amplify getting the message out to their constituencies. And we also requested specific feedback from recent businesses within the last 2 to 3 years that had gone through the sign permitting process. So with that, the online questionnaire that we just shared with you, we received 23 total responses. And while that may not seem like a huge universe, it is a big universe for signage, and many of those responses were for groups of businesses, think Shadelands and so forth. But most of them, or a significant proportion were from retail businesses, and then business property types, so that shopping centers, business parks, etc. So we did have a broad array of representation for people that have been very vocal over the years about the sign ordinance and wanting to see some changes. So summary, some key themes of this, so that business and property owners generally expressed a desire for more permissive regulations that met more modern marketing needs through a balanced approach to standards, but really focused on business visibility, branding, creativity, and maintaining the city's character. And so that's a balance over there. And in these 4 areas, we've summarized in subsequent slides for visibility and location, A-frame signs, one of our favorites, sign and design flexibility, and then process improvements. So, in terms of visibility and location, the stakeholder feedback was that they wanted to be able to have more visibility from both the sign or from the street and sidewalk, because they felt it was essential for their business success. And they wanted to, they had requests for updates to the sign standards, essentially for more signage on building sides, upper levels, and intersections, so that more. The working group offered that for businesses that are on the upper floor or setback businesses to look at requiring directories or allowing for additional A-frames for upper level setback businesses, so allowing that specific sign type. And also to promote visibility at the ground level in downtown, but avoid skyline signs for a number of different reasons, one of which was light pollution from signage for nearby residential uses, because we're having more and more of them in the downtown area, the residential uses, and then also to avoid visual clutter. A-frame and temporary signage. So, stakeholder feedback was that A-frame signs are considered crucial for foot traffic and seasonal promotions. The request was for clearer, more flexible rules for A-frame signs and temporary signs, especially in downtown, citing confusion over current restrictions and inconsistent enforcement. The working group feedback was that if there's a desire for A-frame signs, that they be more temporary in nature rather than permanent, to develop design standards to minimize the visual impact of A-frame signs, so that one of the things that they talked about was limiting the size, and then also trying to find ways to address the difficulty of enforcement standards. I'm going to pause right there to share with you that in 2015 there had been a pilot program that had been launched, and that trying to have to figure out in the downtown A-frame signs what that might look like, and it kind of went its own way, if you will, during the COVID period. And so now we're trying to figure out, how to help better navigate that through this sign ordinance. And the reasons why are that temporary turned into permanent, and that in this picture to the left, you have 6 A-frame signs all in a row, despite the fact that on the buildings, the business names are there. Similarly, in the top middle area, that there are A-frame signs, and then the lower middle, there's an there are quote temporary signs because they can move and so forth, but they all advertise the same business. And similarly, on the right-hand side, there are 3 signs, several of which are actually blocking, pedestrian access and right-of-way here in the downtown. And heard a lot from the sign committee, and then earlier, whenever there was a joint meeting between the Planning Commission and the Design Review Commission about that, which is why A-frame and temporary signs are highlighted. Okay, onward. Size and design flexibility. So the stakeholder feedback, basically, they wanted more. They wanted to be able to use signage for branding, so more marketing, and having more design flexibility, and that to avoid overly uniform or prescriptive requirements. But also, wanted to, enhance community character or local character. The working group feedback was that to establish pedestrian-oriented sign standards in the downtown area, and that's true not just simply for A-frame signs, but also we have blade signs now that are perpendicular to a building that in 1995 we didn't allow, and then looked at the use of exploring overlay zones or form-based codes to allow for flexibility in the standards and allowing it to evolve. Modifying the sign and height standards where appropriate, so that looking at things in different neighborhoods and so forth, and having more tailored towards specific areas, and then also providing more flexibility within master sign programs. So right now we require a master sign program whenever there are more than 5, 6 buildings with signs associated with them, or if there's going to be some complexity of signs, we ask for that to be done voluntarily. For larger buildings, that there may not just simply be one, if there are 2 or more businesses there. So to be able to do that, but then also to establish a scheduled update of requirements and incentives for property owners to update master sign programs, because right now, many of our sign programs were done in an earlier age, and it's quite a process to actually update them. And so there was some recognition that trying to provide those incentives to offer more flexibility, and it's not just our flexibility, it's the flexibility being asked for by the property owner for the master sign programs. Just in terms of stakeholder feedback, we received comments about process improvements. So to improve permitting processes to be clearer and use less technical jargon. Creating tools to help people through the permitting process, like a checklist or online information hub. And then also a recognition that outdated master sign programs can be restrictive to the tenants. So we've got at least one of these underway in terms of improving the processes and process improvements. And then the corollary with that is that we're looking at also refinements as part of that process for our online information hub and checklists. Working group feedback was that they were highly supportive of a central online hub for sign standards and requirements to help lead people through the process. So that's a customer service kind of thing. And then also finding ways to help, for the city to help users, especially first-time users, through the process. And so as part of the process improvements that we're undertaking, that is indeed, as I had mentioned earlier, one of the things that we're working on. With that, it is a lot of information, and I can go back if you want me to, etc. But we're looking for your feedback on this, and you don't have an action to take tonight, but it's more what, given everything you heard, what your feedback is and any guidance or direction you'd like to offer before we go back to the working group and the Planning Commission and the Design Review Commission.
Thank you, Erica. That was quite a lot of work represented there, and I really appreciate it because I've heard about this issue for a while, and I think it's good that we're getting back to it. Questions on the part of council? Go ahead.
Thank you, Erica. That is a lot of information. We certainly have heard about signage whenever there's something, a new business goes up. Talks about temporary signage. What is the definition of temporary, like a temporary A-frames?
Yeah, there's so many things that happen in development. It depends. And it depends on whether it's a real estate sign, that it's more ephemeral, whether it is a seasonal A-frame sign, or whether it is a grand opening sign. And all those are types of temporary signage, but they have different time requirements on it.
And so each of them will be identified so that there's less ambiguity when somebody does put up an A-frame?
That there would be less ambiguity and clarity about whether it's actually allowed or not.
Okay, okay. And then ultimately, who would approve these? Does it still go through the DRC and the Planning Commission?
So right now, for design review and these actions for signage, it stops at DRC. They still have decision-making authority over there.
Okay. Did we get Walnut Creek Downtown's perspective? I mean, I see Kathy here in the audience, but I would be interested, maybe when there's public communication, actually, then you can speak to that. That'd be helpful. Great. Thanks. That's it for me now.
Councilmember Silva?
Thank you, first of all. This has been a long time coming. Who is on the working group, and how big is it?
So it's one member from Design Review Commission, so Phil Newsom, and then Stephen Kwok from the Planning Commission. And they were identified as the representatives for the respective commissions in a joint meeting between the Planning Commission and the Design Review Commission.
And are there staff members on it as well?
There are not staff members on the committee, but I am the staff to this, so I carry forward their. I'm carrying forward their message right now.
How big is the sign ordinance or guidelines? If I came in and I had a new business and I wanted to, how many pages would I be handed?
I think it's 18.
Is it read like an ordinance, or does it read like a guidebook with pictures?
It reads like an ordinance.
Oh, how delightful.
Councilmember Francois?
Thank you, Erica. This has been a long time coming. What comes out of the other end of the sausage grinder, will it be something more like the objective design standards that we apply to housing projects?
So there will be a set of objective standards that come with this. Unlike the housing projects, it doesn't need to be nearly quite as defined because the city still has the ability to have a level of subjectivity involved with it. But for clarity for the business community, the better we can get to these objective design standards and be able to articulate what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do, it makes it so much easier for the development community to be successful.
I agree with that. Can you broadly kind of characterize what the subjectivity factors are? Is it the size is set, right? And
the size is set. Recently within the past year, we had a question about whether or not you could have a chicken on 3 sides of a building versus 2.
remember that one.
And, things like that. Sometimes it's, bigger than a bread box, smaller than an elephant for how much, of your window space that you can put, things on, et cetera. But those are really the kinds of things. And there are some, usually where there's more subjectivity and discretion involved is to where on the dial or where on the needle in terms of the number of signs for any individual business, and what the balance is between identifying place and the business name versus advertising and branding and marketing.
And then in terms of the feedback, I can think of a few instances, and I can share them with you offline, but kind of one retail establishment downtown and then one medical establishment out in the Shadelands, who both had, it seemed like, difficult sign permitting experiences. Was there an effort made to reach out to kind of recent disgruntled applicants, or?
Oh, yes. And so we have gotten, I think the feedback is represented, here, and in a kinder, nicer, gentler way.
Okay. And maybe that's, I'll save it for a comment for later. Thank you.
Thank you for this. It's been a long time coming, especially on the A-frames, because it seemed like it was kind of the Wild West there for a while downtown, and I know that's COVID related and everything like that. So is the intent to identify specific pots of types of signs, like grand opening signs, second floor business signs, daily special signs?
So what we attempted to do in the construct of the questionnaire was to get clarity about what do you want to use signage to do. So do you want to use signage to be able to identify place and business? Do you want to be able to use signage to evangelize about your business? Do you want to be able to use signage to talk about the daily special, whether it's ice cream or a restaurant or some sale or a seasonal sale? Or do you want to be able to project it to the freeway so that people know where they're going to for a hospital, for example?
Okay. And so as far as how long a sign can be out, is there going to be direction? Because there are some signs that pretty much turn permanent downtown. Is there going to be direction on who gets to leave theirs out all the time and which signs are expected to only make periodic appearances?
So that is one of the questions. If that is something that council would like to see with clarity, can offer that the sign ordinance update working group had made suggestions about dialing things in specifically so that the signage that was A-frame signage, for example, would be supplementary so that here's the special of the day, the soup du jour, as opposed to this is what we do all the time. Or if there was in the grand opening special, or if there were a seasonal sign, but seasonal not being defined as 365 days a year.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have questions? Thank you for guiding us through this, and we will open it up for public comment, and then we will bring it back up here to provide that generous feedback that we are good for doing. Open it up for public comment. Step forward to the podium if anybody wants to. Please complete a speaker card. Once at the podium, introduce yourself and city of residence for the record, and everybody gets 2 minutes. You might get a little longer since there's many of you.
Thanks. 650 of us. Kathy Hemingway, Walnut Creek Downtown Association. Live in Lafayette, but live here as well. On behalf of the Walnut Creek Downtown Association. Yes, we have been involved, our businesses have been involved in the outreach that Erica had mentioned, both in focus groups and in surveys. And it's been a project that we've been working on the 18 years that I've been here. Erica had mentioned the previous program that started or was facilitated in 2015. So through the city, we helped facilitate the temporary outdoor display program. And so that was seasonal. That was something that pre-COVID we had been talking about. Could that be something that could be adjusted to be year-round? For the reason that the seasonal permit took place in like April to October, and then all the signage and the displays had to be brought in, mostly because of the weather. But then the businesses' feedback to us was, well, that's when they really needed it, kind of post holiday time, mostly in the first quarter of the calendar year when things are a little bit quieter. So that's where we are starting to lean into working through a year-round program. So happy to revisit that, and also happy to help facilitate any of the programs as they get finalized. And then as far as specifics as far in the signage space and size and all of that, we get a little bit of both from our businesses. Some have had it with the amount of A-frames that dot the blocks, and others express that that's an important part of their business in communicating the soup of the day or different specials or different ideas. So we get a little bit of both, but I think some type of continued effort to create some formations and guidelines would be helpful. And I think that pretty much focuses or answers the questions that I had talked about, or that we had also, and then one other thing was just the flexibility to be extended into the proposed artwork to reflect the business's unique brand. So just some flexibility to have some creative artwork in the outdoor signage.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, let me make sure I'm in the right place. We're done with the sign ordinance. Next on the agenda is a public hearing on the ordinance amending various sections of the zoning code to implement a housing element program regarding residential care facilities and a minor code cleanup and edits. And I will turn it over to staff for the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Darling, Mayor Pro Tem Wilk, and members of the council. I'm Crystal DeCastro, Principal Planner in the Community Development Department. And for tonight's following item is a request for council to consider and adopt an ordinance amending various sections of the zoning code related to residential care facilities, along with minor code cleanups and edits. Okay. State law requires cities to address barriers to housing development for vulnerable populations such as persons with disabilities, low-income households, and seniors. Consistent with this requirement, the city's housing element requires an amendment to the zoning code to increase the flexibility of residential care facilities, or RCFs, in all zones that allow residential uses, and to reduce their parking requirements. The city's zoning code defines two types of residential care use. The first one is residential care home, and the second one is residential care facility. A residential care home refers to a small facility that serves 6 or less individuals, allowed by right in residential care, in residential zones per state law. A care facility refers to larger facilities that serve 7 or more, and they are allowed in some zones, and others require use permits. Both types provide 24-hour non-medical care for daily living and are licensed by the state. State law requires cities to treat care homes like any other residential use. To support and implement the city's housing element program and expand housing opportunities, the proposed amendment would update the definition of care homes and care facilities to clearly distinguish that care homes include 6 or less fewer persons, and care facilities are 7 or more persons. It would update the base district regulations to allow care facilities where care homes are allowed. And it would reduce off-street parking for non-residential zones. In residential zones, the same parking standards for the underlying zoning district would apply. But in non-residential zones, a reduction in employee parking is proposed. The proposal includes reducing the required number of off-street parking spaces for employees from 1 space to 0.75 spaces per employee, while maintaining the current 0.25 spaces per bed requirement. So how was this proposed parking ratio determined? So staff evaluated 4 existing care facilities in Walnut Creek, analyzing their existing parking condition under 3 parking alternatives. These outcomes were then compared to the existing parking standards of 3 nearby cities, the city of Dublin, Pleasanton, and Pleasant Hill. As highlighted in green in this table, Alternative 1 provides a moderate reduction in total parking, helps avoid overparking in residential areas, maintains adequate capacity for both staff and visitors, and aligns with regional practices and trends. Yesterday on November 3rd, the city received a letter requesting additional language to specify the maximum number of beds permitted for care facilities to be based on what can be feasibly be placed in a building. For clarification, staff reviews care facility applications on development standards such as setbacks, height, parking, and landscaping, or floor area ratio in non-commercial areas, in non-residential areas. So staff doesn't regulate the number of beds, as this is governed and licensed by the State Department of Social Services. The proposed zoning amendment does not change this process or override the DSS licensing authority. Therefore, with the proposed ordinance, the city's reviews will remain the same, focused on local development standards, while the state continues to determine how many beds will be licensed for each facility. Also proposed are minor code cleanup items, and they include adding the definition of objective standards for clarity, removing outdated summary use table. This will avoid redundancy, reduce conflicting information, And also, this data is available online on the city's parcel viewer, that's through our GIS system. Also, these uses are listed with each zoning district chapter. And then next is amending the ADU ordinance and JADU regulations. Updating the ADU ordinance aligns with the recent state laws related to occupancy, fire sprinklers, demolition permits, and noticing. And then updating the JADU regulations are related to owner occupancy and prohibiting short-term rentals for JADUs. These minor code edits reflect the city's current practices. On October 9th, the Planning Commission recommended City Council approval of the proposed ordinance. Therefore, staff recommends City Council to find the zoning ordinance exempt from CEQA and waive the first reading and introduce the zoning ordinance, including the revisions on the errata sheet. This concludes the presentation, and staff's available for any question.
Thank you very much for that. Questions? Councilmember Francois?
So thank you, Crystal, for that, and for the summary and for the Planning Commission update too. In terms of the comment we received on beds, I thought you, staff, provided a good explanation, but just to kind of clarify, and our regulations and these regulations would not restrict the number of beds that could be put in a residential care home or a residential care facility.
No, it would not restrict that. We're not restricting residential care facilities or care homes. The State Department of Social Services regulates the number of beds within the facility.
We define the envelope of a building that, of a residential care home or a residential care facility based on whatever standards apply in that zoning district.
Correct. So in residential areas, it's defined by setbacks or height. In non-residential, it's typically by floor area ratio.
Okay. And then the number of beds could come into play in terms of how we characterize it, like you were saying. If it's 6 or fewer, it's a
Exactly.
residential care home.
Yes, by definition.
But still, the number of beds, how many beds you can fit into that building is set by the state.
Yes, by the State Department of Social Services.
Okay. Do those processes run concurrently? Like, how do you know how many beds you can have? Do you get the zoning approvals first, or do you get the licensing from the state first so you know how many beds you can have?
So it would be up to the applicant to obtain that information from the State Department, where they would say how many beds they're going to have. And then once we get the application and it says how many beds they have, then they have to follow specific building and safety codes.
Okay. So likely they would get the state approval first and then come to the city?
Likely, typically.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Silva?
So what is the, in our experience to this point, residential care homes are more like single-family homes that have been converted to residential care facilities?
Yes, we typically see them in residential zones, duplexes or single-family homes.
Residential care facility is more likely to be in a non-residential.
Yes,
But if you have a 4-bedroom house and you put 2 beds in each of the 4 bedrooms, you have a residential care facility, right?
you would.
Okay. So you really, it's what he said.
Yes, so it's really based on the definition, so the capacity of how many individuals are residing there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? No. It sounds like, have you heard back from the party that commented on Larky Lane that they're satisfied with your answer, or do we know? Oh,
No.
We're sitting in the audience. Okay, we'll get to that.
We'll hear from them tonight.
All right, I don't have any questions at this time, so thank you very much for that, and we will go ahead and open the public comment period up. Anybody that would like to comment on this agenda item, come on forward, fill out your speaker card, come up and identify yourself and your city of residence, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. How's it going, you guys? My name is Tyler Wagner. I'm coming from Concord, California, soon to be a Walnut Creek resident. Yeah, so I think it's great that the city is moving forward in making the zoning amendments necessary for the residential care facilities in the residential zone. I think that goes to show that you guys are for the seniors, especially the upcoming wave of incoming senior population that we're going to be seeing. And so, yeah, so part of the reason I'm coming here today is on behalf of the property owner, 2463 Larky Lane. Yeah, we just wanted to clarify and talk to you guys in terms of the interpretation on how you guys, this municipal code's interpretation on the maximum bed count. I believe in a planning commission meeting last month, there was talk about, and there was just talk about again about how the maximum bed count would be set by, the governing agency, the DHS, over the maximum bed count and what they would allow. Our only concern is that there's nowhere in the code, in the municipal code, that actually says this. And so, our concern is just memorializing the fact that, in your guys' municipal code, that it states this and that it's clear and that we're all kind of on the same page so that the zoning code can be more easily interpreted from developers who want to build residential care facilities in Walnut Creek in the future.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? All right, we'll go ahead and close that and then bring it back up here. And I knew there was going to be some reaching for the buttons.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the public comments, and I think we made it probably about as abundantly clear as we could tonight. And I'm happy to say it again, that the city doesn't regulate the beds, that's regulated by the state. So we have no control. It's not part of our zoning code. It's not something we limit or restrict you to. That's something that's licensed by the state, not by the city of Walnut Creek. What we have control over is the development envelope, and those code standards are already set basically, and we're simply saying that these care facilities, in order to blend in and fit in with the neighborhoods that they're going into, have to meet the height, size, setback limits of existing development in that area. So I think staff did a good job of clarifying that, and I appreciate we have something in writing too that's part of the record that makes it clear, so not just us saying it on the record.
Yeah.
But unless there are any other comments, I think this is good public policy that we're planning for the wave of seniors that are already here and that are coming, and that we're allowing people to age in place in their neighborhoods or in neighborhoods, not necessarily having to go to a dedicated senior retirement area if they don't want to be able to, live and be able to walk downtown and do all the sorts of things that they did when they perhaps owned their own single-family home. So I'm prepared to support this, but I'll allow my colleagues to make their comments as well.
Any other comments?
Just, I'm supporting it as well. I think this is important at this time.
And I think I'm supporting it. I want to say we have a clear response to the issue that you're concerned about. I understand why you're concerned about it, but I think we've made it clear, not legislative intent, but we're clear on what we're doing here tonight. Councilmember Silva, did you have anything?
I'm supporting it as well, and I think we have no evidence that we have been in a practice of not abiding by state law and not staying in our lane. And we have many residential care homes and residential care facilities in the community, and we know what DSS's responsibility is, and we know what ours is.
Yeah. I was truly amazed during COVID. I was distributed some materials to the various. I was like, wow, it's a care home. What? It's a care home. It was, I only could find them by the little COVID signs that were on the door. Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
I would. So I'd move to waive the first reading and introduce an ordinance amending various sections of Title 10, Chapter 2, zoning of the Walnut Creek Municipal Code, and making a CEQA exemption finding under Section 15061B3 of the CEQA guidelines.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Francois.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Councilmember Divini.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Welk.
Aye.
Mayor Darling.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, now, thank you. And thank you all thank you, Crystal, and thank you for supporting Walnut Creek and being willing to invest in it. So now we will move on to the deeply anticipated next agenda item, where we waive the first reading and introduce the ordinance prohibiting the use of gasoline-powered leaf blowers. And I invite the staff forward to make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Candace Rankin-Mumby. I'm the city's sustainability manager, and I'll be providing the presentation tonight on the proposed gas-powered leaf blower ban. So we'll start by providing some background on both the legislative landscape and some of the environmental and health reasons that have led to similar bans in other jurisdictions. Then we'll go over the proposed policy, give overview of outreach that's been conducted, and then discuss what plans we'd have for implementation if adopted. So to begin with the background on the state and local regulations, the sale of small off-road internal combustion engines, which includes gas-powered leaf blowers, has been prohibited in California since January of 2024. The implementation of that state policy is managed by the California Air Resources Board. Local regulations have existed in California cities long before then, and our research indicates that at least 100 other cities in California have some sort of restriction on the type of gas-powered or the type of leaf blowers that are able to be used. Some of the nearby cities with these kinds of restrictions on gas-powered leaf blowers include Lafayette, Pleasanton, Piedmont, Emeryville, Oakland, and Novato. During outreach for our Sustainability Action Plan, which was adopted in July of 2023 by the City Council, staff received interest from the community in including a gas-powered leaf blower ban as part of that plan. This feedback resulted in 2 actions in the plan to address the health and environmental concerns from gas-powered leaf blowers. Action 15.1 is to adopt a community-wide ban on the use of gas-powered leaf blowers for homes and businesses to be phased in over 3 years following plan adoption. The item before you tonight would allow staff to implement that action. And then action 15.2 addresses the city's own use of leaf blowers in our fleet, and that action has already been addressed. So one of the main drivers for this type of policy that's led to it being included in our Sustainability Action Plan are health concerns. So the health impacts of gas-powered leaf blowers are various, and they result from several different pollutants that are listed on this slide here. So because their engines burn fuel inefficiently and in close proximity to people, they result in potential health concerns, including increased risk for respiratory issues, challenges with coordination and focus, skin and eye irritation, and potential increase in cancer risk. There's also environmental concerns from gas-powered leaf blowers. They create a few different types of environmental pollutants. The first type relates to urban smog, and research from the California Air Resources Board has found that 1 hour use of a typical leaf blower is equivalent to smog-producing pollution that would be produced if you drove from Los Angeles to Denver. Further, gas-powered leaf blowers produce greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change, and implementing the gas-powered leaf blower ban will result in approximately 2% of the emissions reductions included in our Sustainability Action Plan. So the proposed policy structure would add a chapter to the sanitation and health section of the municipal code, banning the use of employment of someone to use a gas-powered leaf blower or to use one yourself within the city of Walnut Creek. The property owner would be responsible for ensuring compliance with the policy on their property. The policy does allow for limited exceptions by first responders in emergencies. So next we'll give an overview of outreach that's been conducted. So this has been a focus of our sustainability team over the last 2 years. We've conducted general outreach to the community in person at community events, including the Locust Fair and at the Shadelands Farmers Market. We've also met with representatives from the business and environmental community, and we've shared information through the Nutshell, our eco newsletter, the city manager's update, and through the creation of a leaf blower webpage and related interest email list. Over 90% of the feedback that we've received from the community has been in support of the ban. We've also done more targeted outreach to those stakeholders that we feel would be more impacted by the potential policy. That includes commercial property managers, homeowners associations, and landscaping businesses. So we've developed an outreach list of about 400 contacts in these categories, and in September we sent that pictured mailer in English and Spanish to those addresses. We also followed up with landscaping companies when phone numbers were available, which was about 90 of the businesses on our list. And we left voice messages with those who did not answer, but we were able to talk to about a third of the landscaping businesses that we had phone numbers for. And of those that our staff spoke with, 40% already had some electric leaf blowers in their fleet and indicated that they'd be able to comply with the policy if adopted. Another 11% shared some concerns about the potential policy, and that was focused mainly on the cost to transition and the effectiveness of electric equipment. And then the remaining 49% were relatively neutral on the policy and mainly just asked when it would be implemented if it was adopted. And we intend to continue outreach with this list if the policy is adopted with updates. So following up on the main concern that we heard, the cost to comply, costs vary greatly depending on the business structure and the quality of equipment that businesses would choose to use. Batteries do make up a significant portion of the cost. Research that staff have reviewed indicate that the cost to transition one commercial equipment and the associated battery equipment could be approximately $1,000 to $3,000 for that one piece and supporting equipment. And the overall cost to operate the equipment should save about $10,000 over the life of the equipment in lower fueling costs, so for electricity versus the gasoline. And then also they require less maintenance, kind of similarly as you might have heard about electric vehicles compared to internal combustion engines. So with that savings over the life of the vehicle, they're expected to break even the cost in 1 to 3 years of regular use in the type that a landscaping company might have. There are, from our outreach that we've done to local retailers and manufacturers, there are often financing opportunities available that can also help offset the upfront cost. So additionally, we've heard concern about the quality of available equipment. Technology has improved significantly over the last several years in electric leaf blowers, and as mentioned previously, for the last almost 2 years, they're the only options that you can buy in the state. And so our understanding from our research is that though the operation of this equipment is different and might take some adjustment on the end of the user, when used appropriately following manufacturer's instructions, what's available now is equivalent to the potential older gas-powered equipment that these businesses may be currently using. So education is critical to the successful implementation of the proposed policy. Sharing information and resources will likely be a faster and more effective way to encourage change than enforcement action. If adopted, community outreach on the policy will be our primary method to achieve compliance. When complaints are received, staff will plan to share information on the policy and resources for transitioning away from gas-powered equipment and services with the property owner with the potential violation. If enforcement action is needed, the policy would follow the same process as our other regulations in the municipal code. This process does require significant staff time and also significant evidence of violation for a citation to be issued. And staff will continue this targeted and general outreach throughout to try to achieve voluntary compliance. So with that, I'll turn over to our recommended action. And before I'll take questions, I might ask our city attorney to give you an update on a potential amendment we'd recommend to the ordinance that's included in your packet.
Thank you, Candace. One of the comments that the council received today was specific to the wording of the ordinance, and there was a question about whether it was confusing to the reader or might not be fully accomplishing what we were trying to do. And so what we've done is revise the language in section 5-9.102, which is really the essence of the prohibition in the ordinance, to make it clear that the ordinance is intended to prohibit any person, business, or entity who owns or manages or rents property in the city. So that's the actual owner, manager, if you will, the person renting property, or anyone that they retain to use gas-powered leaf blowers as within the city limits. And so we thought this language is clear and makes it clear that we are having this ordinance apply to the property owners, the property managers, if you will, not directly to enforcement against the landscapers themselves.
So let me make sure I understand that. So if you get a complaint, the initial contact will be to the person who owns the property, not chasing down the landscaper.
That's correct. Yeah, and the enforcement, and as Candace is indicating, the educational efforts will be geared towards that person because they're the ones who are in control of the property as we're going forward.
Mm-hmm. And our intent would be in the education that we provide to share materials, to share it with the landscaper or business owners so that they can help facilitate that conversation.
Okay. Questions for staff? Councilmember Finney?
Are you done with your presentation? Okay. No, I like this wording. I had a similar concern, so I guess so. I have a few questions. The thing that we've heard about. Well, I guess it's comments. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. No, I don't have questions right now. I have comments, so I'll wait until afterwards.
Hold the comments.
I've got some questions. Thank you, Candace. Obviously, we've been hearing a lot about this for, oh my gosh, probably ever since I've been on city council, 8 or 9 years. So understanding that there is still going to be this cost to independent individual landscapers. We're talking about one leaf blower. Maybe they have one, maybe they have two. I doubt they have an extra few $1,000s lying around in many cases. So how can they afford to quickly transition to electric blowers within 30 days without help? I mean, we haven't budgeted for this. Some of the assistance that's in the county isn't available now for it. So what do we recommend? I mean, are we recommending this as staff, or it's like, well, it's out of our hands, you got to make the transition?
So as staff, we wish we had money available right now in the budget to provide financial incentives, but there are also complicated factors with putting in something like that, and you often need some sort of residency requirement, following up a business license. It can be quite a bit of paperwork to put a local process like that in place. The state has previously had funding available when the statewide law first went into effect in 2024, and the funding that was allocated for that did run out. And some other air districts have had local funding available. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District has not, though they indicate that they are in development of a voucher program. So if we are, as staff, are made aware of anything from Backmud or from other, sources, that's part of the reason we're developing this leaf blower specific interest list, so that we could share that information quickly with our stakeholders.
And what are we doing within the city of Walnut Creek on our own leaf blowers? What's the status on that?
Would you like to talk about that, Mike?
Uh-oh. Phone a friend.
Good evening, City Council. Mike Vickers, Assistant Public Works Director. In regards to the operational side of things, whether it's our street maintenance team or our park and open space team, we've started transitioning about 1.5 years ago. And we have approximately 15 to 20 electric leaf blowers throughout the staff. And we've, for the most part, put the gas-powered leaf blowers aside and focused 95% of our effort with the electric leaf blowers. I say 95. From time to time, we do have some what we would consider public safety issues or potential challenges. For example, in the downtown, like tonight, we're going to get a heavy rainstorm. If we had a lot of leaf litter down there, we would probably get the gas-powered blowers out because they have a little more. They put out a little bit more pressure, and they can clean it up quicker.
So what happens if this ordinance passes? What happens 30 days after that? Do we put them away for good, or are we still using them at a 5% rate?
Yeah, we can use them for what we would consider emergency type situations, public safety events. It's in the ordinance that we're authorized to use the gas-powered for those types of incidences.
And this would go, thank you, Mike. I don't know if this is back to Candace on that, but maybe stay close. So this would go into effect 30 days after we went through the second reading and pass everything, right? So then everybody has to be, it's enforced at that point.
Yes, the way it's currently drafted, it would go into effect 30 days after the second reading. So if it moves forward tonight, that would be December 18th. So at that point in time, we could, begin responding to complaints. We would be starting with the education first. So no one on a first violation would be receiving any sort of citation. And then we're going to be working through education with property owners as much as we can, and at some point after that it may be escalated if necessary. So on December 18th no one's getting a fine, but
so it's a warning. We're starting off with warnings.
Yes.
Okay. That's good. That answers one of my questions. So how does enforcement occur? What do we expect to happen if somebody's using a gas-powered leaf blower, a neighbor sees it? Who do we think they're going to call? Well, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, so the initial complaints would be directed to sustainability staff, and we'd be following up with either through phone calls or see-click fix. It would be directed to us, and then we would be following up with that educational information first.
So
as a potential violation too, right?
Right. So putting myself in the position of a resident, I see what's going on. I'm probably not going to be looking up who the sustainability person and what the number is at City Hall. I'm probably going to dial, hopefully, the Walnut Creek non-emergency police line, but I imagine some people will be dialing 911. What protocols do we have for that? Because I mean, I'll get into my comments afterwards. And let me just first say that I absolutely like the direction of what we're talking about, but I'm really concerned about an inundation of calls that are non-emergency on a police staff that probably has 5, 6 people maybe in the daytime that are out and about doing actual police duties.
Yeah, so we've been in preparation before coming tonight. We've been working very closely with our police team, including dispatch and our code enforcement team, to come up with internal processes to direct that as quickly as possible to the appropriate avenue, which would be us.
I think I thank you very much. I appreciate it. I mean, I know these are challenging questions, but I don't think.
And can there be a rolling transition? I mean, several of you said 30 days from the implementation, people could call up and say you're going to get phone call and we'll be cited. That's crazy. That we have to have time to transition to this new policy. So I don't know. I was thinking, since there was a 3-year implementation, maybe citations wouldn't happen till after that, and then they weren't non-compliant. Anyway, if there's any way that we could leave 5% or a certain percentage of our gas blowers for this time of year in the rain, and when we have branches fall and we have to clear many sidewalks, we have lots of pathways through Countrywood that have to be cleaned, and because the leaves are slippery. So if there's any way that we could have some kind of an exclusion for sites or communities like ours, I would appreciate it.
Thank you.
And my guys would appreciate it. Thanks.
Oh, you know what? That is my rule. We don't clap for people. It's nice to offer moral support, but it can sometimes intimidate other people on some of these issues. So I didn't say that at the beginning. So thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I'm Martin Engelman, and I'm a resident of Walnut Creek. I moved here at the turn of the century to Rudgear Meadows, way up on the east side of 680 up the hill there. We have a very bucolic community with a lot of deer and wildlife and open space. And I used to go to work too and didn't know about this. Now I'm retired. And the thing that bothers me the most about the gas-powered blowers is the noise. I mean, I see their environmental impacts, but what's killing me is the noise. And these things they got to be over 90 decibels. You've probably done studies, but I mean, they're loud. And at the beginning of the century, there weren't that many of them, and a lot of the homeowners, they used to change their own oil and landscape their own yards. And then slowly we started aging out, and the guy across the street, you know, he had a shoulder operation, so he hired a landscaper, started blowing. And then a neighbor stopped by, hey, can you do my yard? So that landscaper then started doing the neighbor's yard. And now we have one landscaper that comes, and we call it Tuesday Blower Hell Tuesday today. He comes at 8:30 and he blows all day at the 4 houses around my house. If I'm out in the garden, there's no peace. If I go inside, the noise leaks through my double pane windows, so there's no escape. And so it's really the noise that bothers me. What can I do? Nothing. I really have nowhere to go, but government can do something. So I urge you to adopt this ban on gas-powered blowers, and I support the ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Mayor and City Council, etc. Thank you for your consideration of a ban of gas leaf blowers. I've been a fan of banning them for many years. The science is clear. There's really no need for this kind of pollution, as well as the noise pollution we just talked about. And we did adopt the Sustainability Action Plan in 2023 that we would ban gas leaf blowers. It's time. And we don't have to keep inventing the wheel. I think many communities have done this all over California and the U.S. in terms of how do we enforce, how do we get other community members to come along, how do we pay for this kind of thing. So again, I would just really encourage us to follow along with this and ban this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Cherise Cound speaking now as a resident and property owner in Walnut Creek. So I just wanted to say that I absolutely support the idea of us moving away from these gas-powered devices that are unhealthy for us as community members and workers. And thank you to the team that has gotten us as far as we have today with our sustainability plan as a city. So my only concern is about the implementation of this, and how can we make sure that we are clear about the expectations, and how do we help people make that transition? I think about as a property owner when I saw those banners that said "Lose your lawn," and it was a campaign from the water, department, and you clicked on that, and it was very clear how to lose your lawn. They had the rebates, they had the dollar amounts that you would get, they had free consultations of people who would do a design for your space for you to lose your lawn. And it was very helpful for people who wanted to make that transition, and it was a great incentive. So in this case, how do we make sure that people are clearly educated and have the information and the resources to make the change? So I sent to you guys earlier today via email an example of the town of Hillsborough. They have not only, they gave 6 months time period before it went into effect. They had a city rebate program. They also had an excellent detailed presentation where a property owner and landscaper came together and presented how they successfully transitioned from gas to electric, and it was fully in English and Spanish presentation. And then they had a printable fact sheet for the city that included clarity around the dates and the expectations and the resources. So I would just encourage you to look at those examples of how this has been done effectively and see what we can do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, hallelujah. We're here, and we're talking about banning what we've been talking about for years. And I can repeat what everyone else has said, but I'd like to thank Candace, thorough. She's done a thorough job of trying to validate every question. And all the folks that have already done it, and I remember us, the council saying, no, we don't want to do it first, or early because there's going to be all this contention. And now that there's more people doing it, that should be easier. So I want to highlight Carol Weed's written comments. I read all the letters this afternoon talking about the noise level. Somebody has a comment about Los Gatos having some kind of noise cap. I don't know anything about it. But education, we've been out there talking about this, and not that people aren't aware of it, and it's never going to be 100% right away. We've talked about people who've already bought electric blowers for their workers. And so it's a matter of bringing them along, and it's just... I guess I don't understand why there's the angst that I'm hearing tonight. We can make this happen. I thought of the same thing that somebody already commented on about the cigarette butts. I can remember walking down the main Broadway and going, look at all these cigarette butts. But, everything takes a little bit of time. But whether you're changing your garage door or changing out your lawn, the people next door to you start talking to you and saying, oh, who did you use? And it becomes a wave through your neighborhood. So it's time. So let's do it and celebrate.
Thank you.
Evening, Mark Colburn, East Bay native, Walnut Creek homeowner since 2005. As a 6 to 7 day a week runner, I've seen an exponential rise in the use of gas blowers in Walnut Creek. As I jog through the city streets, I hear and smell the blowers all day long, 7 days a week. The majority of work performed by the blower dudes is 45 minutes of nonstop debris spreading, exhaust/raw fuel spewing, and racetrack decibel sound levels onto our adjacent properties and city streets. As cars drive by, the cycle is complete, sending debris back onto residential properties, thus ensuring job security. It's gotten so bad that our neighbor's crew were on their rooftop, 2 guys for 47 minutes, blowing gutter debris, asbestos, and filth into our yards, the pool, windowsills, window screens that were clogged, and into our lungs. We were having an outdoor baby shower that had to be taken inside. I'm fed up with spending personal time raking up their mess. This blower topic has been teased since 2021. It's time to outlaw these gross polluters. Did you know that per hour of use, 5 pounds of particulate matter is blown into the air by each blower? This is brake lining dust, lead, fungus spores, pathogens, pesticides, herbicides, and animal feces. Take a deep breath, Walnut Creek. Smell good? How much do we breathe in each year? About 265 tons. The California Air Resources Board has stated that gas leaf blowers are the leading source of ozone-forming emissions in the state, ahead of cars. The cumulative damage that these gross polluters exert on Walnut Creek residents contributes to reduced life expectancy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back up here. Do we have additional questions for staff based on the public comment that?
Page of the book first here. I'm going to support this. Right? This is something that I think is really important, and I think that we as a community do need to support this, and I'm glad to see the movement in that direction. But I'm going to talk about a few cautionary notes that I think we need to take as a community as well, because this is not the kind of thing where we say, great, we're going to flick the switch, and now all's copacetic, because that's not going to happen. When we talked about this at the California League of Cities, and I talked about how we were talking about implementing this in Walnut Creek and looking at the right timing on this. We hung up that Zoom call with 50 or 60 cities and mayors from the state, and the mayor of Santa Barbara called me, and at the time I was mayor, and he goes, Mayor Wilk, I just want to let you know, be very careful when you do this, because we implemented it in Santa Barbara. We were inundated with police department calls. Neighbors are calling on neighbors. We've turned everybody into whistleblowers. Social media has absolutely blown up. Nextdoor, if you thought Nextdoor was bad before, be prepared, because Nextdoor is now just going to be people calling out other people, their neighbors. Social media on Facebook is going to be horrific. Just be prepared that you're going to turn the community into chronic busybodies. This is what we've experienced in Santa Barbara. I mean, he called me directly to let me know after we got off that call. We understand the hardship here when it comes to landscapers. I think that is something that is real. Walnut Creek, we've just made budget cuts. We don't have the money for a grant program or a loan program. It's great that Hillsborough does, as one of the top wealthiest communities in the country. I do like the fact that when Charisse Count had mentioned that there's the fact sheets that both in English and Spanish, I think that's great. I think those are some great ideas. I think a presentation by a landlord and developer, a landlord and a landscaper talking about the transition and how they made it work, I think that's excellent. I would love us to implement something like that. But there are these concerns that are going to inundate police and unfortunately make social media even more problematic than it already is. I think we can all agree upon that. And lastly, there's a concern. I was thinking about this yesterday when I was going through the entire report, and I wish it wasn't a concern. But we have to be realistic in this day and age of what's going on. And I am concerned that a neighbor gets upset seeing a gas-powered leaf blower by a landscaper who is most likely a minority, and he's upset and he calls ICE. Can any of us say honestly that is out of the realm of possibility? I don't think we can. I hope certainly that doesn't happen, of course, but I think these are serious unintended consequences that we are going to have to address should we approve this. And again, I'm in support of this. I'm going to approve this, but I don't think that we can go in with blinders thinking we've just made a great decision, everything is going to be great from here on out, and we've reduced noise and we've reduced pollution, which we will have done, but there's consequences with that. And that's my comments.
Craig?
No, I agree with Councilmember Wilk. There will be challenges. I think it will probably be something that settles down over time, but I'm sure the first part of that will be challenging. I'd like to sort of propose the following items. In addition to the ban on the gas power, I think we should set hours during which leaf blowers can be used. Do we have that already at the city? What are the current? So maybe I should have asked that during my question part.
We do have a noise ordinance, which has hours. I apologize, I should have that in front of me, but I don't. But it's, the early morning hours and evening hours that you'd imagine. So if the equipment reached the decibel level limits and all the associated parts of that ordinance, the noise ordinance will continue to apply in this case as well.
So going back to Hillsborough, I thought they had reasonable time, 8 to 5 on weekdays, 10 to 5 on weekends. Is that, So that would be my suggestion for leaf blowers. And then for the decibel limit, I think we should set a decibel limit for the electric blowers, since I think that's one of the biggest things that people are responding to is the noise. So I would say like 60 decibels, maybe for the decibel limit on the equipment. I would also like to propose that we create a rebate program. I know it will take a little time, but maybe we can accelerate it. We did have some money left over from the resurfacing item 2G, so perhaps we could allocate some of that money to a rebate program, fund it with, $25,000 or $50,000, and then use that money to help folks transition, because I think that's a valid concern. I'm not as, it's not about the big landscaping companies, it's more about the smaller individuals that might have a harder time with this. The rebate program could be for residents or commercial operators with a Walnut Creek business license. And then I'd like to see if we can, in the future, do we have plans, or can we create plans to start transitioning our other equipment to electric, starting at the city level? I don't know if that's in our sustainability action plan, but would be nice to see that. And then the last item is, as far as, because I'm hearing that when it rains and it's wet, it's hard to get the leaves up. But I think that's going to be true for everybody. I mean, and it's going to be true for these big complexes especially. And so, if we as the city are saying that we need to use the electric blowers when it's wet and there's leaves that are difficult to get up, I think that's then a tough ask for some of these bigger communities to have to deal with the same problem but not be able to use the gas. So I would ask that as a city, we don't use it for that reason. That we really restrict the use as a city to the most extreme circumstances where issues of safety and health are really like some sort of natural disaster, and not just the rainy leaves. That's it.
Thanks. Councilmember Silva, what are your thoughts?
So I think we have, from a health standpoint and a sustainability standpoint, this is the right thing to do. But I think all major policy decisions, and this is a major policy decision, it's not minor, and it is not in comparison to smoking. Smoking doesn't have a $3,000 to $4,000 price tag on it to change your behavior. This behavior is a business behavior. So it's not comparable in my mind. But I think we have an obligation to do this, but I'm very concerned about the way we're implementing it. I would say that my interpretation of phased in is different than the interpretation that we're receiving tonight. Doing 3 years of outreach when we didn't really even know what the outreach program was and couldn't offer advice on it is different from actually a phased-in approach where you adopt the resolution, you have a time frame, you have to comply certain stages. So I'm struggling with the implementation. I'm also struggling with it in the fact that a large preponderance of our gardening services are being provided by those who are small business owners, and they may or may not be in our community. And so we would have to be mindful of, I think about my neighbors, as we're an aging community, our neighbors who have a landscaping service, the property is required to implement this, and they lose the landscaping service because the landscaper can go to Concord, can go to Danville, can go to San Ramon and pick up more business. And now someone who really needs their landscaping done for them doesn't have the service. So, I mean, I just see these things, these are these unintended consequences that you were mentioning, Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem. So if we were going to adopt this tonight, I want us to talk about a phased-in approach and what that would mean, how we could do this such that we slow roll it. I appreciate the idea that Hillsborough is primarily a residential community, large expensive homes, very wealthy property owners, and it's a small community. It is very easy to, and they still phased it in. So I think we need to look at that. We are a business community, we are a residential community, and we have a good portion of our residential properties are single-family attached, such as Countrywood, 299 units. There's Bancroft Village, there's Suns Park, there's Rancho Dorado, there's Stratton on the Lake. All of those have beautiful trees, and in the next few weeks, all those leaves are coming down, and tonight's rain are going to bring a preponderance of them down. And to suggest that it's not a safety issue to remove wet leaves, they're slippery, people are more likely to fall. You can't see if you're walking over landscaped areas, you can't see what you're walking on. You could trip over a hazard that's in there. So I don't think we should wait for the natural disaster to say it's an emergency. I think removal of leaf litter is a consequence of the environment that we live in. Loss of business, loss of jobs, inability and loss of services in our community. Those are the implementation issues that I'm thinking about, and I'm trying to figure out a way for us to provide direction without making it appear that we're trying to say no to the underlying policy, because I think we are a yes for the underlying policy.
Councilmember Francois?
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming tonight, and thank you for the comments, and thank you to staff for the diligent efforts over many years. We're all committed to this policy. It's the right thing to do from a sustainability standpoint, from a noise standpoint, from a health standpoint. So I share the concerns, I think, that have been raised previously about the implementation, the cost that small business owners will have to incur. And they will have to incur those costs. There has to be a day of reckoning at some point. And what I'd like to do is be faithful to the language that we had in our plan, which was the phased implementation approach within 3 years of adoption of the plan, which, like Candace said, is July 2026. Quite honestly, if the life expectancy, though, of this equipment is 3 to 5 years, not all the equipment is going to be at the end of its useful life at that point, and some contractors will likely have to make the difficult decision that they can't do business in Walnut Creek any longer, and will have to go to neighboring communities to do that, which don't have these bans. So I appreciate you struggling and trying to articulate the phased-in approach, because I think that is the right. I mean, it seems to me that generally the way Cherise Count had explained the Hillsborough ordinance, and I didn't have an opportunity to look at the ordinance itself, but that essentially they adopted the resolution but didn't take effect for 6 or 7 months. That general concept seems right to me, whether it's 3 months or 6 months. That day is coming, though, and I think it's incumbent on all of us primarily as property owners, to the extent we hire landscapers, to tell them there's going to be a change, that you're not going to be able to use gas-powered blowers any longer, and that you're going to need to convert your fleet to the electric ones. I think I like generally the concept of rebates, but I see the difficulties that staff mentioned in terms of how do you verify residency. And yes, you could require business license, but I think that's really getting at the big guys that probably can already absorb the cost more than the small independent landscapers who may or may not be based in Walnut Creek. So that they wouldn't be getting any benefit of that. I think the way to get at that rebate is through BACMID, or I guess the state program has run out, but to do it more regionally and not at the local level. I don't think I have anything else to add. I'm in support of the ban and would like us to talk about a phased implementation approach.
So let me try this. I appreciate everybody that came here tonight. I understand all sides of the question because, in addition to our property here, we have a big property up in the mountains. We've switched over to electric, but there's a lot of running back and forth to get the batteries. But it's also something that we need to do from a health standpoint and from an environmental standpoint. So just thinking about the year in leaves, the year in landscaping, we are in November. This is not the time this month to make this happen this month. But if we gave ourselves 120 days and made the ordinance kick in on March 18th, hear it next month, give it 120 days, kick it in March, that's a time of year where theoretically we're through the worst of the winter, we're through the worst of the wet. And then it gives us a time period to help people conceptualize how they're going to deal with it. And there's a couple things that I really like about the approach we're having, which is we're not going to chase down the individual landscapers. It's an obligation that's on the property owner, the homeowner. And if the landscaper can't do it, in the case of a single-family residence, I know somebody who was really sick of the leaf blower at his house, so he just bought an electric one, he recharges it, and when the landscaper comes, he puts it out for them, and they do the blowing with his leaf blower. So there is a way for the homeowner to take ownership of it. But if we have the ordinance implementing in March and give ourselves some better time to do the education that we need to do to get people ready to do the switch over, to help them kind of think it through, and then move into the start of, well, this is now required, but nobody's going to get a ticket. They're going to continue to get educated for another 3 months or something like that. That in my mind kind of starts to look like phasing that'll work in a couple different ways. It'll give us a little more time to educate. It'll give people, small property or small business people, a little bit more time to plan. It'll get us through the worst of the leaf season for this year. And reactions?
I think that approach makes sense. And I mean, you could quibble on whether, I think just March or April or whatever date you're going to use, getting through this winter season gives folks the opportunity to not have to make the hard changes right during the middle of it. And then in reality, gives a little bit more flexibility well, they'd have to use the electric equipment, but it would be at a time when it'd be more effective to blow around dry leaves. Just for a point of comparison, I think that the backpack blowers, which we heard are 1,000 to 3,000 a piece, I think are the ones that they would use for resident, even the gardeners would use, are much more expensive than what an individual. I purchased one and it was about $200, but that's just to blow out the garage and not any heavy leaves. So, but anyway, I like your approach, and I think it's workable.
I like that approach as well, because I was sitting here thinking, we must have been, reading each other's minds. I was sitting here thinking, we're going to do this, and we're talking about a storm tomorrow, and just the consequence. Is it also a possibility that we would be looking for some solutions for these large homeowner associations that have to blow roofs and gutters, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, they have a monumental amount of work every season. And we really don't want them removing tree cover.
I'm not 100% sure what to do with that. It sounds like I mean, I just don't know the technological capacity of, you know, Mike assures us that the commercial electric ones still don't have the oomph of a gas-powered one.
I mean, I think to that point, and I know that I was keeping notes here, that at least one of your gas ones was down. So hopefully when you replace that one, it would be with an electric one. But maybe we could use this period of time too, if we haven't already, to conduct additional outreach to the HOAs to say this is taking effect. The council decided to phase it in. It would take effect in middle of March or beginning of April, whenever it does. But I'd like us to have that dialogue with those homeowners associations, if we haven't already, or we need to again, just to remind them of the date.
And what's our appetite for a decibel level on the electric?
You know, I think the existing the existing noise ordinance, I think.
We do have an existing noise ordinance that the town has, and so we could, when we bring this back for action, we could report to the council on what those standards are, but we do have an existing one right now. And it's, you know, I would suggest we would just report back to you on that as part of it, because it does, it also factors in like ambient noise and whatnot. So if you're leaf blowing next to the freeway, it's a different issue than if you're doing it in a pretty quiet residential neighborhood. But we do have standards for the quiet residential neighborhoods. Oftentimes they're time-weighted standards though, and these are pretty quick, 45-minute incidences. I would want to advise the council too, because there are, if you think back to the corollaries of when you were moving to different types of internal house utilities and whatnot, whether or not there are some state preemptions that come into play. So I would want to advise the council on that, because when you're starting to say a decibel level, you're really getting into the market of what can actually be sold out there. Keeping in mind, as you all have noted earlier tonight, you can't buy legally in California anything but electric ones right now. So if we're going to set a standard on electric ones, I'd want to make sure there's no preemption issues that we have going on with that, because that's getting to the equipment itself, not the use of the equipment.
So it sounds like the recommendation is to have, when we bring it back to us to adopt,
We could report that, and then if then the council would understand, can we regulate, and if so, what are the options? And then if you wanted to amend the ordinance, you could do that if you had the legal authority. But I would want to advise first on whether you actually have that authority.
Because I could see challenges with, if we're passing an ordinance on leaf blowers that are used in different parts of the city, that if they can be so loud in one area next to the freeway, but they can only be so loud over here, then that wouldn't really.
Well, I think the underlying premise is that we're getting, by using an electric leaf blower, you're getting a quieter leaf blower, and that you can't, there's nothing beyond that other than raking. And so.
Yeah, I was just reading briefly that some of the electric models can get up to like 83 decibels, which is, pretty loud. So since that was a big part of the community's concern with the leaf blowers, I just want to make sure we're not replacing one loud instrument for another.
Are you comfortable with the city attorney's recommendation that they bring the issue back to us?
For further discussion? Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I think on the rebate idea, I wish we were at a point where we had the money to do it. I think there are significant implementation issues with it as a local rebate, because to be quite honest, I know the fellow who does our yard does not have a Walnut Creek business license. And he does not live in Walnut Creek. Mm-hmm. And so there's implementation issues with the rebate that are difficult.
Well, then actually, when I think about that, somebody could be working in Walnut Creek, Concord, and Pleasant Hill. Are we rebating for the whole ball of wax?
Yes. Yeah. As much as I would hope that Bachmed can get back in the rebate business,
Yeah, I guess
rather
my,
than try to do it ourselves.
sure. I mean, I guess my lens on the rebate was, even if we wind up, supplementing people who work in neighboring cities, that's our contribution to the transition, because we feel it's important. And so even if it didn't go exclusively to, even if people somehow took advantage or they were working in multiple areas, it would still be an opportunity for us to try to, help move the needle in that regard.
Okay, let me articulate this motion. I would move to amend and I don't have it in front of me, shoot. Amend the draft ordinance to allow implementation on April 1st, 2026. And then ask staff to bring back additional information about noise levels and regional funding efforts when they bring the ordinance back to us next month.
Just one clarification, we were currently planning to bring the ordinance back on November 18th in 2 weeks.
Oh, that would not be, we are in
We have an
November.
agenda that is awfully packed. If it was coming back on consent on a second reading, it's different than coming back
Yeah.
with date changes and
I mean, if you want us to delay bringing it back, we could certainly do that.
And alternatively, we can, if the council's in agreement with an effective date of April 1st, 2026, that only requires a minor change to the ordinance that's before you tonight. It's in Section 5 at the very end. It currently says it's effective 30 days after adoption. We could just say it's effective April 1st, 2026. So there would be no enforcement ability even before then. And the issue of whether we delay enforcement further to do community outreach is not something that has to be in the ordinance. The council can just simply provide direction on that.
Yeah, I'm just not quite yet used to the fact that we are in November. So that's why I was saying next month, but we are in November.
Mayor, just, apologies. One other thought, if there is concern that November 18th is a big meeting, we could bring this portion back, could go on consent if there are the modifications made this evening. If your council wants to have more discussion on the noise item, we could bring that at a subsequent meeting, but not too far into the future. They don't necessarily have to be coupled, unless you want them to be coupled, absolutely.
So actually, that could work well if we bring this back with an April 1st effective date, and then ask staff to bring back noise and an update from Bachmed on rebates. And that doesn't have to get tied together. That can come in January. And
Yeah, if that's amenable to council, we can do that.
so
So the second reading wouldn't be November 18th, or
well, we do the second reading November 18th with the effective date of April 1st.
get a follow-up informational item?
And because those are separate issues. And I think we're all, what I heard from across the board is that we're all interested in proceeding with the leaf blower or ban, but we are also interested in making sure that we find ways to make it more equitable and to make it more effective. But those are not linked. Those actions are not linked. So my proposal would be my motion, not a proposal, my motion is to waive the first reading and introduce the ordinance and bring it back, direct staff to bring it back to us at the next meeting with an effective date of April 1st, 2026. And then we also direct staff to bring back additional information relative to noise ordinance and regional rebate possibilities at a meeting in the not-too-distant future.
Second.
And can we add on to that also to discuss the times of day that, whether that falls inside or outside of our?
I think that's what we're asking staff to bring back.
Yeah.
what our
With the noise
existing
that would
ordinances
also
are.
include that discussion? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and Mayor, if I may, then, so that's the ordinance that's referenced on the screen right now with the modification that's in there, and then the only other modification is in section 5 to show the ordinance shall become effective April 1st, 2026.
Yes.
So if it's that, you can actually introduce it tonight.
Okay.
And then when it comes back to you on November 18th, if you choose to, you can adopt it at that point.
Okay. So I will move to introduce this ordinance with the date change and the change shown on the screen.
Yeah.
Second that.
Roll call?
Mayor Darling.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Walk.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVinny.
Aye.
Councilmember Francois.
Aye.
Councilmember Silva.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you all very much for this. And I know this is something that some of you are deeply, and I know we will work with you guys to make sure that and now I have to go home and tell Joaquin what he has to do in my backyard.